suffer from my art. Now it's your turn. Hey, Doug.
Hello.
Hello. Isn't it time we spoke at people again?
Yes, it's time for a guest.
Yeah. I mean, speaking at people, I've got a very interesting friend. Friendship has grown over the years, and I met him when his secretary was drunk in the same bar that I was drunk in New York in about...
In the city?
Yeah, in about 20... Well, I don't know. It was like 2000 and something, very early 2000s.
Oh, wow. A while ago.
Yeah. And she said, hey, my boss really wants to meet you. And I was like, who's that? And she said, well, his name is David Pakman, and he's running a company called eMusic. And I was like, oh, music, eMusic, and this is when the internet and music was just starting off. And so I was intrigued. And when I met him, I was fascinated because he's a real, like, what you call a Renaissance guy. He invests in technologies and he's interested in music. He's got a good computer background, but he also played drums with Squeeze, which was like whoa, that's just kind of a left field thing.
Yeah, he's an interesting guy, definitely,
yeah,
based
really
on his
interesting,
bio.
right? And so I wanted to ask him a few questions about his illustrious career. David, lovely to see you. My first question was, when you were testifying in front of Congress in 2012 as CEO of eMusic, one of the early platforms for digital music, was the future you were describing to them then what we are living now, musically and otherwise?
When you're younger, tell me if you make this observation, but when you're younger, you seem to be more certain of everything. You know everything when you're younger. The older I get, the less I know and the less certain I am about the way the world's going to go. So I was younger when you,
Right.
at the moment you're describing.
So was
I had amazingly high conviction about what the future was going to be. And let's see, what were some of those points then? Well, CDs were going to go away and all music was going to be downloaded and then music was going to be streamed. That just seemed so obvious to me. We just needed a little more bandwidth to go from downloads to streaming, but we called it, the jukebox in the sky was what kind of it was for. So we got that 100% right. Like that is exactly the future we're in now. That no one has physical music anymore and it's streamed to us on any device, even our Apple Watch, right? We can get music, any song, anytime. So that part, I think, turned out just as we were describing it would. But what didn't happen is we believed that in that world, artists could go direct to their fans, that you wouldn't need record stores anymore. You wouldn't need distribution middlemen. You maybe wouldn't even need record companies. You could just forge direct relationships online, an artist to a fan, and stream to them anytime you want. That did not turn out to be true. In fact, it's nowhere even closer than it was back in the 90s. There's a couple examples. Maybe you point to Kickstarter, maybe you point to Bandcamp, like a couple examples, maybe in the longer tail. But even Taylor Swift, who has every economic position one would need to cut out everyone in the chain, recreates it, with all of her wealth, allows Universal to still be her record company, right? And doesn't do anything direct with any fans.
Do you think that maybe that has something to do with this kind of cachet that you get from being part of something bigger draws people in? People always want the next big thing. And if you're starting off as your little mom and pop band selling stuff and you're building a fan base, which is okay, you're making a living, but you never really get into the sort of, you're not flying the big flag above the world, the world headquarters of music like Taylor Swift is. She's got the kudos. And so fame and competition is something that drives big money and big music. That's why the record companies, they sort of lock up the ego of the artist and drug it, pump it up, and then they spend a lot of money on PR and everything else. But if you're just mono you can never get that big. Really, well, Taylor could, but maybe she doesn't want to. She's got a boyfriend who's doing it for her now in other worlds, right?
I was going to ask you this question because you're in a better position than I am and than Doug is to answer. Why haven't artists who have already fan bases decided to try to cut out music publishers and record labels and Spotify's, and
Right.
because the tech exists to do it. It may not be as elegant, but the tech exists to do it. And so you confirmed a few suspicions. I mean, well, first one is like, well, because they're artists, that's not what their job is, right? Like you're busy.
Well, that is actually true, though. We're like, my biggest motivation in life is laziness. And not really, though, but the biggest kick I get is going out on the road and playing live. The buzz I get going on stage every night, seeing an audience, no safety net, no hit record. Oh, got that wrong. Do it again, do it again, do it again. You just got to deliver straight away. That's the thrill. And as you said, in aging, your convictions of youth fade away and you have more doubts. But the only thing you don't doubt is your own ability to deliver a good show in the moment. Like, I know I can sing in tune. That's what I want to do. And so the rest of it, and the sort of redividing a penny into nano sections of a penny and watching the decimal point go bloody whichever way it's going to go, that the amount of money that Spotify end up paying to artists is so small because you're having to divide it with someone who's just got 6 plays and there's 60,000 songs a day being released or whatever. It's like, it just gets divided up so thin. Why bother? That's been my ignorance, probably making these decisions. But that's why I figured we'd want to talk to you. Is there a change?
I knew even back in the New York days in early mid 2000s, I knew an artist that was signed to CBS, Vanessa Dow. If you guys are familiar.
Yeah.
And from a major label standpoint, she was considered a failure at 150,000 records. She was one of the first people I knew that actually, once she was dropped, she had maintained her audience. And they started selling their records direct. And they were selling their last couple records, CDs, 120,000 of them, and pocketing that whole $9.
Whoa.
And so for them, they were one of the early people to go, you know what? We have this fan base. The record label considers it a failure, but it's not. And they went and did direct marketing. I'm not sure how they did that. The internet wasn't so robust back then. I think we had AOL. But they were one of the first artists that really did that successfully. But, David's right. There aren't too many that do it.
Yeah. I mean, the smart ones who do, if you're a business guy who can play music, that's probably a way to be educated into the field these days. But like I say, we were just like anything but numbers. It was just the only numbers I needed was bar measures and count-ins. But music is a form of math.
Well, as a drummer, and as a math person, I totally agree that they're very similar.
They are.
The same way. But I think, trying to be an entrepreneur where you're running your own company, doing marketing, collecting dollars and cents from your fans, figuring out how to structure offers to them and package. And this is usually not what a great songwriter or musician wants to spend their time on, never mind the fact hasn't been working on that their whole life to get good at it. So it's not surprising to me that you don't have artists themselves doing it. But what is surprising to me is there's a lot of different companies that have created the tool sets to let artists do this. The first one I remember was called Artist Direct. It was started by Mark Geiger, who co-founded Lollapalooza, and then there was another company called Top Shot, which was started by Peter Gotcher, who was the founder of DigiDesign, that makes Pro Tools, and Ian Rogers, who was, one of the earliest digital music pioneers. And they tried to build the tool set so that an artist and their manager could sort of adopt a direct to fan model. And maybe they were early, but there's some evidence that it works in other creative genres, like Substack, as a place for writers who want to quit their job reporting for a newspaper or writing a column somewhere and sort of publish direct. Of course, YouTube is like the platform for, any of us who want to create audio video content and publish it direct. So like there are, I think there are other modalities where I think we see like people creating careers. Cy, I was going to ask you, like, is ego a part of it? You said that the record companies are so great at kind of reminding or patronizing our artists that, like, you guys are incredible. You do it all, please come in here and
where do I sign?
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
And maybe you don't get that same immediate feedback when you print your song to the internet and see how many people download it.
I think it definitely is, the moment that rock and roll was born was a revolution against the system, but it actually needed the system to revolt against. Sure. And then it became in the 70s very clear that it was the system and the huge money was following. And that's what punk was supposed to be about, a revolution again against the system. But you can't keep it out. You can't keep the system of ego and the fame drain from wanting to just suck you in. And I'm the first one. I get a big rush when I go on stage, and I get an even bigger rush when I come off stage. I'm like, whoa, managed to sort of survive without embarrassing myself. And as a band, again, as we've matured, we've realized like we've improved in the bottle like wine. We actually get a huge joy out of being together and communicating with something that's bigger than us. And we've realized that it's actually the audience that is bringing collective energy in and making the best us, the best me's, deliver and stand coherently in that moment and accept their attention and give that responsibility back to them without insulting them and putting on a shit show. Peripheral, pay attention.
Yep.
You know what I mean? So it's, I think there's I look at Jamie in the band sometimes and I go, I guess what we're just going to be romantic failures, because there's a romance to what we really feel we're doing. And the Fixx has often been called one of the most underrated bands. I tell you what, I'd rather be that than the most overrated band.
And I can
live with it.
Yeah, there's a lot of those.
So moving on, the younger generations, and I know you've met recently Max Curnin, my younger son, who's popped up in this world, who's way more savvy in your world. And he's dealing with like trying to standardize NFT contracts. That's his take. And you've met him, haven't you, a few times?
I have. And one thing that was funny was I've met him a few times, and we ran into each other at a conference, a crypto conference, and he was with a bunch of other people who, kind of barely know who you are. You know what I mean? Like your friends, your son's friends are not Fixx fans, right?
Right.
Just like when I tell people I played with the Motels, they're like, who? I'm like,
what?
Dude. But he was standing around with all his friends, and he's like, wait, before we get into the crypto thing, I have one question for you. Like, how did you meet my dad again? And I'm like, dude, I'm a fan. Like, I have to remind, and I want all the watchers of this to know, because I hate when people appear on your podcast and don't bother to point out, like, hey, I'm such a Fixx fan. I've been a Fixx fan for a long time.
Yeah.
I'm a Cy Curnin fan. I saw you at Irving Plaza. That was a good show. Ink is my favorite album. I want to put that out there because I know that's rare. Not everyone would say that to you. Love that record.
Yeah.
People are always talking about Reach the Beach.
I remember you mentioned that song Crucified. Every time I wear that shirt,
I think of you. Yeah.
Yeah, that line.
Yeah. Oh, I get goosebumps. So I'm a fan, but it is nice to see
Thank you.
Your son doing such interesting work.
Right.
In actually the currency of what underlies all of music, right, is the intellectual property, right?
Yeah.
It really is an intellectual property business, and he wants to do away with the lawyers.
Yeah, exactly. He almost is shaking me by the collar. Dad, you really need to be doing this. And eventually you'll be able to like leave a legacy that lasts way longer than your lifespan. And people will be able to listen to you and see the new young you in 20, whatever it is. I just don't understand it, but I'll follow what you're saying. And I know he's like always praising your guidance. I thought you could shed me some light on what it is he's actually trying to do, the contract and licensing.
He sees just like maybe what I saw and we all saw in the digital revolution of music was like, hey, if the songs can come over a wire, you don't need to turn them into physical objects and put them into trucks and then put them into stores. What does that mean for music? You still needed lawyers as that happened, right? You still have to negotiate your record deal. Those were humans.
Right.
You still have to negotiate publishing deal. You need humans. Then when something goes wrong in those contracts, you need someone to stand in front of a judge and, like ask the judge to interpret what the contract really meant. All these humans, very expensive humans. But because of blockchain at its most simplest form is just this sort of big platform for people to transact one thing to another without any middleman at all, sending you something, getting paid for something. You can codify in software code some rules, which is really like kind of what a contract is, right? A legal contract is a bunch of rules. If this happens, then this other person agrees to do this. I'll do this, you do that. If this happens, you'll do that.
Right.
And so what Max sees is that in crypto, we have this notion of smart contracts, which are really just little software programs that say, if you do this, then I'll do that. But once you finish writing that piece of that smart contract, you put it on a blockchain and it runs like software, and it doesn't need a middleman to educate it.
Right.
So what he says is we're going to reach a point where intellectual property itself, like, hey, I will send this song to you, Spotify, and you will stream it. And each time it streams, you agree to pay me this much money. Why do we need a lawyer to negotiate that contract? We could just do that on a blockchain. Right. And we can have a little piece of software that says, oh, that song was just played. And so therefore Spotify owes the Fixx this much money. And then it could watch to see if that much money flows over the blockchain. And if it does get paid, then it all happened without any humans in the middle. So I think Max believes there'll be a future where we can take all contracts and reduce them to software.
Right. And is it all active in the moment? So that money that comes from Spotify is right there.
Yeah. They call that streaming payments. It's a really cool term. You think about like, the minute a song is played on Spotify, the transaction could happen right there. Or said another way, like think about this. If you're an Uber driver and you drive and you finish a ride, and I don't know what your earnings were, maybe you earned $30 for driving that ride. You have to wait like a week or two to actually get paid by Uber.
Right.
But they could stream that money to you in that real time. And that's something that blockchains also let.
What's the political pushback? Like, does any of this hinge on, the political landscape? Are there people pushing back against this technology? Don't want it to happen?
I think in Max's case, the idea of putting contracts on the internet, basically on a blockchain, that's not it's not really a politically rife concern.
Right.
I mean,
that comes in more with the crypto and different currencies.
Yeah, exactly. But I think like lawyers probably don't love that because if you can put lawyers out of work, then they don't love that. But I think there are a lot of political issues related to crypto more broadly, beyond just contracts. And I don't know, when you really zoom out, it's sort of odd to see so much political consternation around crypto. But the philosophers who look at this from far say, well, if you really think about it, governments and every institution of power that we've created in like Western democracies, and actually even in non-democracies, are centralized in nature. We have one person at the top and some people under that, but like we all know the decision matrix for how decisions are made in the government and how power is used in governments, and it's all centralized. And the core basis of everything in crypto and blockchain is to decentralize it. Take all the people out of the middle and let the buyer and the seller, the two people transacting or doing anything, let them, meet on the internet basically and be governed by a contract in the middle.
Right.
And the scary thing for centralization, authorities is what happens if you decentralize power? If people can transact with each other without a bank in the middle, without a court in the middle, without a lawyer in the middle, without a publisher or a record company or a performing rights society in the middle, or even a Spotify in the middle, what happens in that world? Who's threatened? And, a cynic would say, well, of course, there's going to be political issues here because no one in politics wants to be removed from the central authority.
Yeah. The juxtaposition I'm feeling in that point is that if the money and the investment, the money decentralizes the earning, but at some point, the artist who's trying to create a piece of art will either have to go to GoFundMe or Bandcamp to get the money ahead of time. And basically, he's going to be using a decentralized platform to bring everyone together like the politicians used to be on one stage and come and see a show. So in a way, power, if you take it back to the Roman thing, is just one guy giving a speech from a platform and millions of people going, yeah, no. And the art that we've sort of endowed upon ourselves to tell the human story follows those same paths, which is why a busker on the street is kind of looked at as like, oh, he's just a one-man guy. He's got like passers-by as his audience. He's as decentralized an artist as you could get. And sometimes there are some artists who decide to go, and their stage is the subway in New York. They'll start having a phony argument about something to get people to be uncomfortable in their sort of normal world. And that is art too.
Can I ask you, when you're writing songs, Cy, maybe this is not always, but just sometimes, do you think about, this is a pretty dramatic thought. This is an unpopular thought. This is a point of view that's going to be, make some people uncomfortable. And that's why I want to release. Like, I want to tell the truth. I want to poke. And maybe they won't all get it, but those who do might be uncomfortable. Do you think about that, or is that a byproduct of you just telling your stories?
Well, at first it's an argument and a rage I'm having with myself. It's like and then, I used to think I'm doing this for approval. You want to gain attention, and you're an approval-seeking missile. We've spoken about this before, but to be an instigator or to become notorious is just as appealing to an artist, but it also has to have some kind of like intellectual value. It can't just be, I'm going to shit in front of the crowd and they're going to be shocked. The shock and awe of it is like, ooh. But so there is a kind of, if you can elevate people out of their own thoughts and entertain an argument that gets the common zeitgeist talking, then yes, so to be an instigator or an agitator. But as you say, as you get older, you have more doubts about what is right. What do you know? You're having to unlearn things rather than learn things, because a lot of what the knowledge you put in your mind have just been early imprints till your brain stops by the time you're 14. And then after that, you're just triggering off these early imprints. That's your life, this knowledge, that knowledge. It's still just the basic facts, the 10 commandments, the this, the that, the right, the wrong. Art can push, hopefully, a little bit outside of the box. And now I'm getting a thought here now is that I suppose when people listen to a song on their own, they are in their own world and you're communicating with just that one person. When you're on stage, there's 1,000, 3,000 of them, but they're all individual people. And what I've liked about in the political climate that we're in now is that it's a purple crowd. It's not blue. It's not red. It's purple. And that's the color of the spiritual wizards. Purple is that color. And I kind of seen purple rose-tinted glasses these days. I look for the unification of people, and I'm hoping that a lot of these technologies will end up being that as well. Excuse me, I have to cough. So my sort of last question for you is that where you were in Congress in 2012 talking about a future, now you're in a thing where you're hoping for a future. You don't quite trust what you see, or do you? What would you wish for our younger people to have with this technology, the better of it? What do you think?
It's a great question. When I was younger, everything that tech was doing to me looked really bright and good.
Yeah.
Making art available on demand to anyone with an internet connection seemed like a really good thing. Democratizing the ability to publish and say something on the internet, that felt like a good thing. Like getting rid of the gatekeepers.
Yeah.
It's like, this is going to be great. Facebook comes around, like, oh man, now everyone can publish. Twitter, everyone can publish. Boy, this is going to be great. And there were skeptics saying, this might not be such a good idea. And I was like, you don't know what you're talking about. Tech is good. These are good people. I know my friends in Silicon Valley, like, thoughtful, progressive in like the sense, like we'd like to advance democracy and human rights and, like make the world better. Like it came from a pure place. And now look where we are.
Right.
We have maybe, democracy might even be teetering. Some democracies might be teetering because we've now enabled communication mechanisms that allow for rampant disinformation, no way to discern fact from fiction, intentional promotion of disinformation. We have people who own platforms who want to misinform people. They're not truth seekers. They're intentional truth deniers or truth hiders, and they've got huge power. And they're all using the same technology that we thought was going to let people broadcast good ideas. And instead we have bots, broadcasting harmful ideas. So, maybe I'm just older now, and I see the world through different colored glasses than when I was 20 or 30 years ago. But I see a lot more problems now,
right.
and we're facing as societies, we're facing a lot of tough problems. We're facing climate change, and so if we don't have tools for us to come together and organize around solving big problems, but the tools that we thought we were going to use to do that are actually dividing us, making it impossible to talk, can't trust anything. Like that to me needs to be solved. And it doesn't feel to me like tech is the solution for that.
No.
Right? It doesn't feel like that at all. It's something different. In fact, it might bring us back to art. Like, how do we bring us together? I was actually just going to ask this question. We were talking about the purple crowd. When I was, you could sort of see Taylor Swift trying to figure out, like, should I make a political statement here or not? I mean, I've got, I don't know, like 1 billion fans in the world. They're not all going to feel the same way I am. What's my calculation here? Do I come out and say something and risk alienating people? What's that going to do to me economically? Like, I want to still fill my arena. I don't know if this was going through her head at all, but you could sort of feel like you were watching it in real time. And
absolutely.
Decision, I'm going to say something. And then of course the stories start coming, like, Taylor lost me, or now I love Taylor even more. So it felt like she was confronting a hard problem, not sure what to do. You sounded like you turned that around. You said, I know I'm going into a purple room. I want to find the common pieces of this crowd and bring them together. That feels like a great purpose of art. And are you unique in looking at it that way? Are most artists on their heels going, shit, I better not step in the wrong direction and piss half my audience off? Or are they like, how do they think about it?
Right. I mean, when someone first opened their eyes in the morning, before they put any energy into justifying their beliefs, there's a crack that you can get into. And I like to imagine that first eye-opening moment before the brain has even kicked in, where the sense of, oh, I'm alive, nothing hurts, I'm grateful. If you can find the thread of gratitude, no matter what side of the camp you're on, the sound of a baby crying, a puppy licking your face, little things like that. I mean, you can't make good art out of it necessarily, which is why we've got so many millions of photos of cats all over the internet, but it's a start. Getting back to your point about Taylor, where she was having to make a decision, it's like you can't please all the people all the time. So you have to go one way or the other. But if you kind of deal in the real basics of humanity and try and find out what the art of a heartbeat is and the art of a bowel movement is, I know it sounds very scatological, but it's that basic.
Mm-hmm.
And Bob Marley was the one who got the closest to it when he said, it has to be so simple, even a baby understands it. Mm-hmm. And that music can't help but make you feel a little something. So I always listen to a little Bob Marley. John Lennon had the gift too. Those are like my two forefathers in my head of how to make you feel that the moment wasn't lost, even though you could be dying inside. So I kind of go to those when I'm going to write a song. It's like, it's got to be as good as something they would do. We'll start there anyway.
It sort of brings me back to circle back to music. How, David, you are at the forefront of music streaming, and obviously a lot of artists complain about the royalty structure. A, do you think that the streaming royalty structure needs to be revisited and revised? And B, how do you think it will affect emerging artists who struggle to make any kind of living? Do you think we'll lose some great art because of that?
Let me go on a quick soapbox on streaming royalties. Spotify gets the bad rap here. But for every $1 spent on digital music, Spotify takes 30% of that. And the rest of it goes to the record companies and publishers, and they take a bunch of that, and then they send it back to songwriters and artists. If you look at the whole pie, more is going to the record labels and publishers than is going to Spotify. Spotify makes less than those guys. So, and then the artist gets usually the same or less than what the record labels and publishers.
Same old.
Yeah, it's the same division model.
Right.
So everyone hates Spotify. Artists say they're not paying me enough. They're not paying you, actually. They're paying your record company and your music publisher. Those guys are paying you. So your question as an artist is, how much are those guys keeping? And is that fair?
A terrestrial radio play pays, or a streaming play, right? Does it not pay fractions less than what a terrestrial radio play plays? So
used to,
therefore,
anyway.
Yeah, I think so. The user doesn't get confused.
Right. So and from that perspective, there's less money coming in for an artist, like, as far as their mechanical royalties go.
Yeah.
And then you've got the record companies taking their bigger piece of a smaller pie, which leaves artists to complain, which is what they're doing, right?
Yeah. I mean, in a world where the record companies made the CDs or the records themselves and put them into vans and drove them to record stores and helped position them into the stores and they did a lot of work besides just helping you get studio time. And now what do? You guys make the records on your own in your own studios. You don't need to go to the record plant anymore. I mean, it's fun to do that, but you don't have to.
Right.
You can email any producer or co-writer in the world you want and find them, and you guys can probably collaborate on Zoom or in person if you wanted to. You don't need the contacts of the record company to help you find co-writers and producers and folks like that anymore. They're not printing anything up. They're not doing any distribution. You can upload a song to Spotify in 2 seconds from your home studio. So I would argue they do a lot less than they used to do, but they still get the same amount. So I think there is something unfair about that needs a reckoning. And I'd also point out that Spotify, I don't know any Spotify stock. Like I think they're generally good music loving people, but they just get a bad rap. But Spotify distributes your music non-exclusively. You can take your music and do anything else you want with it. Record companies and publishers sign you exclusively. If you don't like what they're doing, you're under a contract. You can't do anything about that. So I would just like to point out that I think the fire is directed to the wrong place.
Yeah. So independent artists are doing okay on Spotify. If they have a
you don't have
following.
a record company or a publisher, you're definitely getting paid more than or making more. Yeah.
I mean, I know that when we were signed to Universal, you know, they had that building in Studio City. It was like 20 floors. It was like 18 of those floors were just lawyers, right? That's pretty much how a record company protects its 70% of the pie.
Yeah.
Slam you, banging everybody that tries to come after it. And they can afford it. Even recently, we've been trying to renegotiate our percentage rate with MCA, and there was a group action, and they went no. The judge kind of went no. This you could just status quo has got to stay the same. So I don't know where that's going to go. And that's why our music disappeared from Spotify for a while, because out of a tantrum, MCA or Universal or Sony, whoever it is these days, decided to just take us off and say, see what happens? Now play nice and we'll put you back on. And we gain maybe 2 more points. In the end, now you know why we want to go and play those songs live, because there isn't that fat cat sitting on stage. I'm the one getting the glory right now.
You know, I got to meet Peter Gabriel once at Real World, and I had lunch with him. It was one of the highlights of my my fandom. And he told me that this was a while ago, but he told me that Genesis had to hire a legion of lawyers to audit. Who was Genesis on? Atlantic, was it?
Yeah.
Yeah, they were on Atlantic.
Right. They had to do like a 3-year audit of all their statements because they never received a single penny beyond their advances.
Right.
And they had to do this.
Isn't there less money to go around generally? You know?
I don't
know if that's really true, because if you look at the total number of paying subscribers for Spotify, Apple Music, Amazon, etc., YouTube, and you look at all the revenues produced by advertising on the free tiers, I think there is close to, if not more, total money in music than there was at its peak right before the decline of CDs. We're pretty close to that. It's like a $40 billion annual business. So I think there's a lot of money to go around. The question is who's getting it and how, and who's in the middle.
Right. And when the population of the planet is growing, every 20 years, you've got another couple of billion people that are all taking their share of the market. So the market's obviously growing. It's getting thinner only at the artist's revenue end.
Yeah.
And the older artists.
So maybe this sort of try to solve this question of like the money. You know, it brings us back to this earlier conversation about like, can some artists sell things directly to their fans? And the reason I think that's so important is, well, one, it cuts out a bunch of middlemen, right? But it also lets you sell to the super fans, right? Like the ones who are likely to be closest to the artist are the ones who like the artist the most, who are probably wanting, who would be happy to spend more. We see this in tickets today, right? There's an appetite to spend thousands of dollars for some people to sit in the front row. If you sell every ticket for $100, you never know that, right? You never find that out. But of course, there's a lot of middlemen between the artist and the fan in live music and ticketing. So that's a hard one for artists to capitalize on. But you know, we've talked about this for 20 years. Like, are there certain rare recordings, special access, special sessions like this, you know, where you get to get closer to an artist? Not every artist wants to do that, but where you're willing to pay a lot more money directly to an artist. And I think that's one way to kind of try to, you know, get paid.
Yeah, I think, you know, it's value and self-worth. When you're an artist, you don't want to spend too much time standing in your own glow, because you lose sight of where the real sunlight's coming from, which is, you know, where
I think the positive aspect to all that is artists have gotten closer to their audiences because they almost have to.
Yeah.
You know? And I think, you know, the special packages that they put together that they sell directly, or the meet and greets, or everyone's much more accessible now with social media. Cy's got interacts with some of his biggest fans regularly. And that's a good thing. And
we were doing so well. Then COVID came along, and then kind of jammed it up. We did have a good role with the fans. You know, after the show is as much of a show for us as during the show, because a lot of people have become friends. I don't call them super fans. I call them just friends.
Oh, that's nice of you to think about.
Some great people interacting on our site here.
I'm so grateful that they're bringing their kids up. That, you know, they were 1 minute they're at school, the next, you know, they're graduating MIT or something, and you're like, whoa, how big they are. And you feel that the world is growing around you and that you're part of something that's bigger than you and that you don't want to have control over it. You just want to be part of it and let it. And that inspires me. Now, we tried earlier to talk about your musical.
Wait, hold on. Before you get off that, I have one question for you about this. This is a really cool topic. Kurt Smith from Tears for Fears told me that one reason that he posts a lot of personal stuff on Instagram, like pictures of him at home and going for a run, is because he thinks it diffuses that sort of crazy tension that can build with big fans where they really want to get closer to the artist in some unhealthy way. He's sort of feeling like, if I show you a lot of the stuff of what my life's really like, does it kind of diffuse the unhealthy part of it? How do you feel about that, Cy?
Well, I mean, there is that, but we were talking about that Chapel Roan, was it, the other day?
Yeah.
Who was having a real tough time with the acceleration of her stardom. And she was going very public with, I just can't handle it. I can't handle it. So that's probably specifically what he's trying to diffuse. And then we'd also spoken about how star maps is a kind of a weird thing that you see in LA. This is where everyone lives that's famous. It's a bit stalky. And so,
a bit stalky. It's hugely stalky.
Yeah, very stalky. So
I do believe that making your idols being more accessible humanizes them more and probably does diffuse a lot of the bad aspects,
Yeah,
Makes
because
sense.
it's, that whole ego thing of like, my value is my ego. No, your value is what people say you are. But the fact that they turn up bums on seats is the size of your thing. And so if people turn up, it's because they like you. And if they like you, job done. And you like them back.
When I was on the road with When in Rome, a couple years ago, my son came on the road. He's also a sort of a budding drummer, and he came on a few tour dates with us, and he was my drum tech. He was great.
Right.
But it was just really funny. Motels would would do like a meet and greet after the show. Actually, would sign autographs in the lobby of the venue.
Yeah.
So, we were opening for them, so we would go out also. Now, not as many people want to meet When in Rome as want to meet the Motels, but still they would line up to get autographs because people collect autographs. And no one knows who I am. I mean, they shouldn't know who I am. I'm just the drummer in the opening band, and like I'm barely, a professional musician. So no one's coming to meet me, right? But my son's standing next to me. We're at the autograph table. People are like, caught your drumstick. Would you sign the drumstick? Of course, I'll sign the drumstick. And then this woman comes up and she goes, would you sign my breast? She ripped her shirt off. She handed me a Sharpie. My son's standing right next to me. I'm like, you can tell Mom all about this, Sammy, but I got to do this because no one's ever asked me to sign a breast before. I'm sure that's happened to you many times.
Yeah, but you could have done the Greek father thing and said, go on, son, you sign it too.
You sign for me.
That's how the Greeks do it, isn't it?
Well, there is that thing when that mystique when you're on stage, and I was always faceless on stage too. So I've had very few of those moments, but they're fun when.
Yeah, no, it's a good thing, it is tongue in cheek. It's a circus. People are supposed to be having fun. So if you're taking yourself too seriously and you become, it's your own nervous system eating you up. It's not their nervous system. Okay. There is the fourth wall that gets, whatever is it, Planet Z, where they're coming over, the zombies are coming to get you, but it's not that bad. Let yourself out a little bit and people will come in and you'll see that we're all the same. And getting back to that crack of dawn where I'm trying to communicate with people, need to be able to be near people that understand where I'm coming from so that I can stay sane. They do say that sanity is just an agreed form of madness.
Mm-hmm.
We're all mad.
Mm-hmm.
We're all insane. Nobody knows why we're here. Nobody knows what God, female, whatever it is. We just postulate. And
the part of it all for me that I think is irreplaceable starts about 45 minutes before showtime. So doors are open. The artist is backstage. Lights have been dimmed. Soundcheck's over. People are coming in. The front of house is playing some walk-in music. there is an undeniable electricity from the smallest venue to Wembley.
Yeah.
Where you're like, it's gonna happen. Like it is on, the electricity is I don't know where it comes from, but it just appears and it just starts to build as you get closer to that 8 o'clock moment or whatever, you know? And I've never found anything else in life that creates that pre-show anticipation, communal energy. The artist feels it, the fan feels it. You can be talking with your friends, but you're looking at the stage a little bit. You're wanting to know when they're coming out. You're looking for the lights to dim. It's there's nothing else like it. I don't see it in sports because the team comes out on the field to like warm up, and so they're right there. There's no anticipation. They're already on the field. But here, the artists, they're backstage. You don't know what's going on. You can't wait. Like that to me, it's been around for 100 years, and it's amazing.
I mean, the nearest I can feel of that is if you ever walked into a big cathedral, just to look inside, you get that same sense of there's a kind of an electricity, even though the history contained within it, and then you see the little light of the candle on the altar or something in the distance, or whether it's the temple before the services. It's something in you that reaches something that's around you. It's like a metaphysical energy. And it's exactly right. Rock and roll is a spiritual connection, and it's an opening. And in that opening, you have to decide how you're going to channel.
You think about that before a show? Because I was just at Austin City Limits Music Festival last weekend, and that's 60,000 people outdoors, 6 stages, something like that.
Yeah.
And I felt that same energy before each show. And I just walking around a giant field, but you could see it. The lights are humming. Now they're doing crazy stuff. They're flying a camera drone around, getting ready to, like the tech is amazing. But like, do you think about how you're going to channel that when you walk out on stage?
Absolutely. You get a reminder because you're in your stomach, your sort of lower chakras are like starting to pull in nerves. You're trying not to remember yesterday because trying to repeat yourself gets in the way. So you're just trying to open yourself to the moment, and then you go and peek out through the stage curtain and see what's happening. You get a little buzz if you see the people lining up and you see the security guards patting everyone next. Oh God, it's show.
You still get nervous?
Yeah. What I have to do is after sound check, eat a little bit, then I have to go and take a really deep nap. So that when I wake up about an hour and a half before show, it's like a new morning. I like the show to feel like it's morning. So I've had a good nap, I wake up, and then I can contain those nerves, become more of an excitement, then a bit of breathing exercise, and then we go. That's how it works for me. It's like getting the horses ready.
Sure.
Yeah. Great.
Well, I've played nowhere near the number of shows you have, but boy, I definitely still get nervous, even if it's the exact same show. It's the 30th night of the tour. You played the same friggin' show. I'm still nervous.
You need that.
Yeah.
You need that because you're about to take all the expectation of that crowd. They're giving you a gift, which is your own existence. And you're going to try to handle all those people in your own little being. It's immense, and it's as small as you want to make it, and it's as immense, which is why politicians have sort of caught in there, but I don't buy their act. It doesn't connect in the same way. Hey, they're always asking.
Do you feel that way? Do you really feel that side that people have come there with their money, their attention, and their energy, and you have this responsibility of what you're going to do with that?
Yeah, absolutely.
That's amazing. Do a lot of artists, do most artists, do you think, feel that way?
I hope so. I would like to think that they're the ones that I've followed and the ones that are really making some traction do. Because why else would your nervous system wake you up? We're more than just grunts. We have sentinel existence, and we have a lot of energy fields that, there's only 5, 6 senses, but there are more. There are 17 dimensions, I'm told by mathematicians. So I'd like to sort of get on the next step to those dimensions to try and communicate something, even if it's my own ignorance.
My kids and I talk a lot about nervous energy, anxiety. And one of my favorite phrases that I heard from someone that I've adopted as one of my own is to be comfortable being uncomfortable. And said another way, if you can look at anxiety or nervous energy before a performance, a test, a speech, whatever, a boardroom presentation, an uncomfortable job interview, whatever, if you could look at that energy as a gift to you, it is your body. It actually does help your body perform. That's what it's meant to do, right? That's what that buzzy feeling is. So you can run fast when the lion is chasing you, right?
Right.
If you can look at that as a gift and say, this is helpful to me, this is going to make me play better drums, be more aware, not miss a cue, be on. My mind is literally thinking more quickly because of the adrenaline.
Sure.
And so if you could turn around and say, like, I want this, I actually want this nervous energy. This is good for me. This is going to help me be great. Thank you. I mean, you can't make your body turn it on, right? It turns it on.
It's like,
thanks for this.
It's like Woody Allen suddenly becomes the internal narrator of your mind. You suddenly, you sort of can get comfortable because there's a lot of humor. If you can laugh at yourself, to be self-effacing is to open up. And I've also learned on stage, I used to take it so seriously that nervousness would kind of stiffen me up a bit.
Mm-hmm.
And then I felt like I'd be hiding behind this stiffness. But then as the years came along, you start to get a little bit more comfortable and the nerves disappear after the first note. And then it's like picking up where you left off, but then also picking up on this energy that's different from the night before. Different people, somebody there, you get a little eye contact. It just releases you.
Brings up something I'd like to ask David. Did you feel that same kind of nervous energy testifying in front of Congress?
It was a while ago. Yeah, I was a little nervous for sure because when you walk into those buildings, they're pretty awe-inspiring. I'm definitely, I think deep down inside a bit of a patriot. I like the story of America and look at these grand, beautiful marble buildings, and it's hard to not feel impressed on some level. And I felt kind of honored to be there. So I think, sure, I was nervous. Those things are a little different because you're reading a statement that your lawyers have helped you write, and they're going to ask you a couple questions. Maybe someone's going to come at you. It's very much a gotcha situation. Sort of like, I don't know if you've ever, hopefully you've never had to like be interviewed by lawyers, but that's their job, is to sort of try to get you.
Yeah.
And
trip you up.
Yeah, a little chess game. So different than a creative moment.
Did you feel that you were educating the uneducable?
Well, I'll give you one example. So I've been involved in a couple congressional rate setting courts where they set like the streaming royalty rate. They bring in experts to say, should it be more, should it be less? And I've been in a few of those. It's run by the Office of Copyright, to testify about rate setting. And you testify for one point of view, and then you get cross-examined. It's like a court. And there are a bunch of rules about free streaming services, like you can't play more than 2 songs in a row from the same artist. If you're sort of trying to duplicate radio on the internet, it has to be a little bit like radio. So when I was being cross-examined, where it gets pretty adversarial, one guy said to me, we used your service. This is when I was running a company called MyPlay, and we tried your MyPlay radio, and you are breaking the rules. This service is illegal. I said, well, how do you mean? Well, here, for instance, like here's we played this song by Genesis, and then we played this song by Phil Collins, and there's 2 in a row. I'm like, those are different artists, dude. Phil Collins is not in Genesis anymore. Like, and it was quiet in the courtroom, and it was like, that just came to me in the moment, and it was like, you picked a band that I know really well, man. Like that was,
good. You get them.
Yeah.
Fantastic. So
you really are an interesting guy, David. All the different things you've done. I mean, is there anything that you're currently working on that you're super excited about that you'd like to share with us?
Well, I think this goes back to the very first comment about like you get less certain the older you get, and at least I do, and it sounds like you guys might too. I'm spending a lot of time last few years investing in and helping build businesses on top of blockchain and crypto. And what's so weird to me about that is, first, like half the people hear those words and They don't know what it means, or they hate it. They've already formed like these very negative opinions because there's been so many scammers involved in crypto, and it's been sort of painted with a bad brush. But it has so many interesting attributes that could be really good for humanity and society. And it's very much, again, sort of power for the people. And it's a ground up technology, and it's a sort of an equalizer, and it can take some power away from the Googles and the Facebooks and sort of equalize the world a bit. But it doesn't really have that that patina yet. At least not a lot of people see it that way.
Yeah.
So
Max has been telling me that same story. He's like urging me to keep going and sort of build a legacy of the Fixx independently of the business.
Yeah, and I'm sure he's right. And I think just that none of us know, are we 2 or 3 years away from that future, or are we 20 or 30?
Right.
And I think as I get older, I appreciate that, like, not only do you need to be right about the future, but you have to be right when it's going to happen. You know, if the future I'm working towards now doesn't happen for 30 years, well, I'm probably not going to be working around that time. You know, hopefully I'm just listening to Fixx songs then.
Hopefully.
But if it's happening in the next 2 or 3 or 4 years, I can really participate in that. So I'm uncertain of the timing, but I am spending a lot of time trying to figure out, how do you build technology on top of decentralized computer technology that all the users can have some ownership of and can have some say in, have a more fair economic picture. Let us all own our data, so we don't have to give all of our data to Facebook and Google and let them sell it to advertisers. Just have a little more control over our digital lives. And I just don't have a lot of sense about, is that around the corner or not? It might take a while.
I look forward to having dinner with you and discussing it further.
I would love that, back in Palo Alto, or I did want to say, to your point about you hanging out with your fans, I did end up on your tour bus once after a city winery show with Deirdre, and that was a great night. So thanks for letting us
really
feel
good.
like your friends.
I always love bumping into you outside of theater. But let's do it again real soon. David, it was wonderful catching up, and thank you for all the information.
Thanks for being on. You're
very inspiring.
I mean, Cy described you as a Renaissance man. You truly are.
Yeah, and, absolutely.
Really, my pleasure to meet you and get your insight.
Yes, Doug, thank you so much for organizing this, and Cy, of course, for all the music and creativity you bring to the world, and your friendship too. Thank you for that.
Yeah, thank you, David. Lots of love to you, man. Take care.
Thank you. Good to see you guys.